Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. And now the Friday Crime Report. Potosi, Missouri, December 2025. There's a particularly cruel place in hell for people who hurt children, and the lowest, hottest, most excruciating part is reserved for the demented animals who imprison children solely for the purpose of abusing them. Today's briefing will look at a case that isn't being talked about. A Potosi woman and her boyfriend are facing numerous charges after police said they abused her children. The incidents happened between January of 2023 and December of 2025 at the woman's home. That means that this went on for nearly 3 years.
Officials saying at least 6 children were allegedly drugged and sexually abused in this building in Brent.
According to the Washington County Sheriff's Office, the abuse included locking them in a chicken coop and shooting at them with air rifles. According to charging documents, Chantel Hayford called the children worthless and said she didn't want them anymore. Other incidents included forcing 2 of the children to try methamphetamine, beating them and throwing rocks at them. Hayford also threw small rocks at them and would punch or slap them regularly. The charging documents said that the boyfriend, Jerry Moniz, also pointed a gun at 2 of the children and threatened to kill them. Chantel is also accused of groping one of the children against the child's will. The sheriff's department said the couple also organized a fight night birthday party during which children were forced to fight each other. One of the children said Hayford forced him to steal food and money from people, and that's how he met the people who are now his guardians. That same child told investigators that he suffered a period of depression in which he ate bugs and leaves. This week, deputies executed a search warrant on Tuesday and took Chantel and Jerry into custody. The sheriff's office said they both provided statements regarding the incidents.
They picked Mom up first. My lead investigator talked to her, and she confessed immediately.
Hayford is charged with 4 counts of child abuse, 3 counts of endangering the welfare of a child, 2 counts of kidnapping, 2 counts of domestic assault, and 1 count of sexual abuse. Her boyfriend, Moniz, is charged with 3 counts of domestic assault, 2 counts each of abuse or neglect of a child, kidnapping, endangering the welfare of a child, and armed criminal action, and 1 count of unlawful use of a weapon. Both of these reprobates are being held without bond. Held without bond. You know, even if this article didn't mention that Chantel was abusing her own children, I still would have been able to guess that the victims definitely were not black. We've seen case after case of white so-called foster parents, and in many cases just plain kidnappers who have tortured and brutalized black children, and when they get caught, those judges and prosecutors can't wait to offer them some sort of bail amount. In fact, racial immunity from law is already starting to kick in because both Moniz and Hayford are scheduled to appear in court for a bond reduction hearing on Tuesday, January 20th. Ain't that something? Only a week after these 2 animals were arrested, they're already talking about whether or not they should reduce their bond. And of course, we have to ask, where did this heinous, horrifying abuse of children take place? Well, to hear the white right tell it, this must have happened in the hood, right? Clearly it happened in the inner city, right?
Where they live is very rural. No neighbors close. We never got a call from any school saying the kids are saying this or that. We never got a hotline call from DFS. We never got anything.
All right, hands up, who didn't see that one coming? Yet again, we have more carnage and crime in the rural areas. It seems every time we hear about some horrifying incident, it's out in the sticks. Small towns, rural areas, and yet they all try to act like this is some bizarre freak event, because that kind of thing doesn't happen here, except if you listen to my crime reports, you know it happens there all the freaking time. Well, after last week's crime report, we ought to be counting our blessings that no animals were violated during this fiasco. This crusade of evil took place in Potosi, Missouri, which has a population of about 2,500 people. It's the largest town, if it can be called that, in Washington County, Missouri. That's a lot of space for depravity. Welcome to what the white media calls the salt of the earth, the so-called heartland of America. You know, where the real America lives. Yeah, because this is what America is all about. Degeneracy, depravity, cruelty, barbarism, with authorities who look the other way and a white media that doesn't look at all. Everybody gets to pretend as if they just didn't know about it. And I know that it disgusts you to hear about these terrible crimes. Take it from me, it's grotesque and sickening to have to report on it. But I do because there's a blatant, open racial double standard where the white media is concerned. Part of why you don't hear about these kind of crimes is because they happen out in the boondocks. But the other half is because the white media buries it. They take any story with a black parent or adult who's accused of abusing a child and try to make it seem like that's the norm, that's the majority of cases. But it's not. So it's important that we mention the other 95% of these incidents, because the only thing more rare than the white media reporting on these cases when they happen is the white media following up on these reports afterwards to tell the public what kind of sentences these demons get. Because if they did, we'd see that the Brock Turners, Drew Clintons, and others consistently keep having their cases thrown out, or at the very least, the most serious charges get withdrawn or reduced to misdemeanors. There was a case out of Akron, Ohio, where this 61-year-old creep violated a 6-year-old on multiple occasions just last year, and even exposed the child to obscene material. This guy, named Walter Jenkins, pleaded guilty to 2 counts of rape, both first-degree felonies, 2 counts of gross sexual imposition, and 1 count of disseminating matter harmful to juveniles. All of these were felonies. He was sentenced to life in prison, but they also had him designated as a Tier 3 sex offender, which means that if he ever gets out, he'll have to register with the local sheriff for the rest of his life. Now you're probably wondering, if he's been sentenced to life in prison, especially at his age, why would they even bother to designate him as a sex offender? Well, that's because he's eligible for parole in 15 years. But as we all know, once these unflattering headlines go away, the on-code racists in the penal system will be scheming ways to let this monster back out on the streets. How many times have I posted a crime report and predictably these scumbags have priors and even many of them sex offender status, which never seems to prompt the authorities to ever go pick them up when they fail to check in. And these parole boards are just as guilty. For members of the dominant society, there is no crime so heinous that they can't let someone out as soon as they think people aren't looking. We need to mention these cases so people know that they happened, and people are reminded how these incidents get swept under the rug afterwards. We all heard about how the Somalians were scamming government money and claiming to run daycare centers. That got big headlines, as it should. But the crimes that the Chantel Hayfords and the Jerry Meneses and the Walter Jenkins commit is every bit as deserving of the exact same treatment, more so. If stealing money for children who don't exist is deserving of wall-to-wall coverage, then how much more should we be hearing about for people who torture children who actually exist? There is a clear and undeniable pattern of this behavior happening out in these rural areas, happening outside of the inner city, and yet you don't hear about it. We should be hearing about all kinds of investigations into rural America. We should be seeing why the heartland of America is so rotten, but instead we're not getting investigations either by reporters or by the white government. And why would they not want to look at this? Because under white supremacy, it's far more important to save face than it is to save lives. And these are the exact same people who will tell you that they care about children so much. No, they only care about the children to the extent that they can promote white supremacy. You got kids being held in cages and tortured? Well, that's not such a big deal. After all, they don't know anyone who matters, and these kids aren't important anyway. White supremacy has no problem sacrificing its young on the altar of its privilege. But I think that we can all agree that the white media will suddenly be very concerned about child abuse and making sure that these stories, and more importantly than that, the photos of the accused are out there just as soon as they can find a black person to point at. And that's this week's Friday Crime Report. Keep your eyes open and stay on alert, because there's a lot worse criminals out there than the ones the white corporate media chooses to show you. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors: Michael, Reasonable Dude, Ronald Scott, Jerlene Harris, and FS Bean LLC. Salute to them, and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.